What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be doing our full in-depth, unbiased review of Dead Rising 3. Now, our review is different from many other reviews because what we do is we take in consideration other reviewers such as IGN, Rev3, GameSpot, or whoever else has popular reviews for the game we're reviewing. Additionally, we don't rush our reviews, so we don't go, hey, the game came out on Tuesday, we need a review by Tuesday night or on Wednesday at the latest. So like for this game, it's been out for many months. I've played through the game a bunch. I've played some side missions. I've really enjoyed the game, and I'm pretty much at this point fully in-depth, full of knowledge of the game, and I'm kind of done playing it. So I think it's a good time to do a review and kind of summarize everything I've experienced and also go through some of the stuff that other people's quote reviews have said about the game. Thus far, many popular reviews like Rev3 Games point out the vast amount of flaws in the game. Don't mistake that with me calling them out for making a bad review. The game truly wasn't flawless, but does it really deserve the bashing it's gotten thus far from many reviewers? Well, here are the scores it's received. Based on some of the most popular reviews, the game is averaging a 7.4 review, and let's go ahead and figure out if it really does deserve that 7.4 rating. One last thing before we get into the review, all footage in this review is my gameplay, so there are no pre-rendered trailers or anything like that. All cutscenes I show are actually from when I was playing through the game, and none of them are from a trailer or anyone else's footage or mock-ups or anything like that. Also note, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. I'm really not going to be talking so much about in-depth parts of the story, and there isn't really a way to avoid everything as far as spoilers go, so I'll just try to keep it as general as far as the storyline itself goes. So when you're first introduced to the game, you will find out that the story focuses on Nick Ramos, who is a mechanic. After a zombie outbreak hits the city of Los Perdidos, Nick is forced to work with other survivors who remain alive in the city, and they're tasked with escaping within 7 days before the government bombs the city. Quickly, you learn that the game is full of variety, very fun-loving, and there are an extraordinary amount of zombies on screen at one time, and that truly does show off some of the power of the Xbox One, and does make this game a flagship game for this console. So I did mention some of the graphics and somewhat showing off the power of the Xbox One, but let's talk about the in-depths of the graphics and what we saw with Dead Rising 3. The amount of zombies on screen at one time was incredible. I really enjoyed that. There was never a time where I was like, wow, where are the zombies at? Because there were always like 1,000 of them on screen at any time, which was really nice to see and something we didn't see out of last-gen consoles. But with that in mind, that was probably the only good thing graphically with this game. The game is being upscaled from 720p, and it's kind of noticeable, especially compared to games like Infamous Second Son on the PS4. Additionally, you'll find yourself occasionally driving into walls or barricades as they render in slowly, and you don't notice they're there until you collide, and then slowly they appear. Graphically, the game resembles more of a last-gen gaming experience rather than an Xbox One quality we've come to expect. Now, with there being so many zombies on screen at one time, it is very important to keep them different, right? You don't want to be fighting the same zombie over and over again in massive packs, and then it kind of feels repetitive. Well, Dead Rising 3 did a good job with different zombie models, so I never felt like I was fighting the same zombie over and over again. I felt like I was always fighting a different zombie. Other than a few occasions where you're fighting the football player zombie or the imprisoned zombie, for the most part, they always felt different, which is really nice, and it never felt like I was running through the same zombies over and over again. Now, as a normal player in this game, the game was not challenging by any means, but you could definitely get yourself in situations where death was the only option. This was clearly countered by the ability to save anywhere, so you never felt afraid to venture out and kill hundreds of zombies because you wouldn't lose your progress. Now, there was another mode called Nightmare Mode where you could play the game in a much harder fashion. I personally didn't enjoy that as much because I thought the game itself was more of a fun-loving game than a serious zombie game, but that option was definitely there for you. The combat system was great and drove me to continue playing the game. You quickly find out that the blueprints within the game that are scattered throughout the map lead you to 300 plus unique custom weapons. By combining them, you could make unique weapons such as the quote massager shooting leaf blower, which really just shot dildos out at zombies, and that was kind of something cool to see. There was never a dull moment, whether it be you flying around your helicopter with machetes as blades, or you using your battery strapped sword, or whatever it may be, you always had fun killing hordes of zombies. Not only that, but there was different kill animations for each weapon, which kept you wanting to get new weapons, not only to kill zombies, but also just to see the different ways you could kill them. The weapons break rather quickly, which force you to fight differently each time you engage zombies, and also force you to try crafting new weapons, which is really cool to see. Now, alongside the combat system where you could combine multiple weapons, there was also a vehicle combination system. Now, there were a lot less vehicles you can combine, but there were a lot that you could still make, and once you've made them, you could easily spawn them back in at safe houses. Each of these vehicles had their own special attack, which included everything from turrets to flamethrowers and even street cleaners that sucked up zombies and shot them out as a big ball. One of the strongest parts of the game was also the character upgrade tree, which gave you real tangible upgrades that you could feel instantly, whether it be upgrading your health and seeing your health bar get bigger, or if it was just simply upgrading your melee or combining weapons quicker, you could always feel the upgrades running through your character right as you upgraded them. So it was never, oh, I got an upgrade, but I can't tell if it's actually good, because they all felt good. In order to get these upgrades, you had to get as many prestige points as possible. Given that you just play through the story, you won't get enough prestige points to actually completely max out your character, but you will get them by doing side missions and helping random survivors that are surrounded by zombies. A huge part of the game that made it fun-loving and unique was the wardrobe system. Not only could you try on different weird outfits, run around and kill zombies in yoga suits with an afro and a wig, or whatever you wanted to do, you could also have these same outfits on during cutscenes. So whether it be a serious cutscene or not so serious, you could do those cutscenes in full medieval armor or whatever you really wanted to. The drop-in, drop-out co-op was really cool, and the co-op in general felt great. This was a big plus, especially if you're interested in playing with friends. On a different note, the side quests were fun, but they felt kind of grindy and competitive, especially when completing dozens of them in a row. There was also a side campaign that wasn't necessarily side missions, but you would fight these psycho different bosses, and it was kind of like a side campaign, which really did add a cool part to the game, where it wasn't just the campaign and it wasn't just side missions, but there was also this psycho campaign that was kind of running alongside the campaign, which was kind of interesting to see, but once again, it didn't really affect the main story. The map, while it did feel large, was rather linear due to the 3 main roads to travel on. Consistent roadblocks were put in place to clearly make your route more challenging, but in reality they got annoying quickly. Additionally, it kind of became a struggle to navigate through the game, and I'd often find myself going the wrong direction towards a roadblock which I thought would lead me to where I needed to go, but in reality there was another roadblock in the way and I'd have to go a long way around or travel by foot. While many reviews complain about frame rate issues, I never seem to have those, and I'm not really sure why people came up with that or if they were real issues, but I haven't seen that at all in the game. What I have seen though as a major issue is the bugs, which seem to be running rampant during boss fights. There were often boss fights where the boss just wouldn't appear at all. There was one where there was a motorcycle incident where you had multiple people on motorcycles driving around you and you had to kill the boss. I was confused for about a half hour because I couldn't find the boss standing directly on the waypoint where it said he was, and eventually just started using my attacks and killed him, which was odd because the boss never spawned in the game, and I oddly completed that mission quickly because it just was weird. There was no boss, never spawned, and even when I restarted, there was never a boss there. So the bugs did run kind of rampant for me, especially during boss fights, but I will say I never saw any frame rate issues that a lot of people complain about. Now, thus far, I'd say the game is good. Based on everything I've said, I really enjoyed the game, and I'd give it a pretty high rating. But when I got to the end of the game, my rating dropped dramatically, and that's because the end of the game was horrible. It's actually one of the worst endings I had ever seen. There were 3 possible endings, and the one I got felt extremely disappointing and rushed. It was as if you were in the middle of the game and they were like, oh, our budget is hit, we need to stop now, or hey, we have a deadline, so let's just cut it here and add the outro credits, because the game just ended. It was odd, and it was kind of disappointing how immediately the game ended for me. Now, what I did as soon as the game ended was I jumped online to see what happened. Did my game skip? Did it bug out? Because that happened often in the game for me. And I quickly learned that no, in fact, I got a real ending to the game, and there were multiple endings. So that's kind of a weird thing. It was so bad for me that I went online and found out, hey, there were actually 3 endings, and I seem to have gotten the short stick with that one for sure. Now let's go ahead and bring this review full circle, because that pretty much covers everything that I thought was notable within the game, and let's recap some of the different review scores. Starting with IGN, which got an 8.3, Rev3 Games gave it a 6, GameSpot gave it a 7, Screw Attack gave it an 8, Game Radar gave it a 7, Polaris gave it an 8, and the average score was a 7.4. Now my rating, based on what I saw and based on some other reviews, I would say other reviews are very accurate with this one. And I would say the game would receive anywhere between a 7 and a 7.5 feels good to me, because the game, it doesn't really, exceed the expectations of an Xbox One game. If this was an Xbox 360 game, it may have a higher rating, but if I were standing in a room and I was like, hey man, come over and play this game, and I had a friend looking at it, he would probably say, is that Xbox One or is that Xbox 360? You really couldn't tell unless you were told that it was an Xbox One game. So that definitely hinders the rating. That coupled with the different bugs, and it just didn't feel like a game that I wanted to play again. Once I finished the game, I put it back on the shelf and I probably won't really touch it again. Now do note, if you're looking for a game that is full of story and you can play for hours, this is probably a great game for you, because you truly can play this game a lot. There's a lot of content within the game, whether it be the main campaign. Once you beat that, you also have the Psycho side campaign, which was really interesting, and you also have a lot of different side story missions. Additionally, you can just run around and explore, which is definitely a great part of this game. So expect a lot of gameplay out of it, and if that's something you're looking for, it definitely could be a good game for you. So guys, that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please feel free to leave a thumbs up and a favorite. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. If you've played this game, what do you think it's rated? And if you haven't, what would you rate the game based on this review? Thanks again, guys. I'll catch you in the next one. Till then, peace, and here is the outro.